Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to the sheep pen, where no goats are allowed. Okay, so today we're going to continue our series on self-deliverance and spiritual warfare. So, in the last lesson, I talked about your spirit being like a house with many doors and windows, and that the enemy, the devil, can't get into your spiritual house except through an invitation of an open door or unlocked window. And that another way of looking at it is that certain things can create in us handholds or footholds that the enemy can get a hold of to wrestle us down. Okay? We talked about some different sorts of windows or openings. And in this episode, I would like to talk to you specifically about a thing that those of us involved in deliverance ministry call soul ties. Soul ties are the concept of guilt by association, or you're only as good as the people you hang around with. Okay? So it's not a super spiritual idea to grasp. At first it seems absurd that by knowing someone you could become, let's say, victim to their particular demons. That their demons might attach to you simply because you know them or spend time around them or you have a relationship or friendship with them, or most especially if you are in some kind of covenant, agreement, or contract with them, like marriage, and or especially if you have some kind of physical sexual relationship with this person, which puts spouses, husbands, and wives at the top of the list of the most influential spiritually in your life. So there is no greater bond than the bond between a husband and a wife, or even like a boyfriend and a girlfriend in the spirit realm, unless it's the bond of a parent to a child, which is also can create soul ties. You have soul ties with everyone you're related to. You have soul ties for every person you ever worked for. You have soul ties with every person that you ever went to church with. You have soul ties to every single person you dated, especially if you slept with them. And you definitely have soul ties to all of your past exes, unless you've made a special effort to close those doors. So one might look at it like this. Let's say you yourself are not guilty of a crime, but you hang around a group of criminals. When one of them commits a big crime, they round up all of his friends and associates for questioning because you have a link to that person. Guilt by association. So let's say you have a soul tie with somebody who has a bunch of wide open doors and windows. It's kind of like giving a person a key to your house and saying, hey, don't leave this laying around. But yet they have a whole bunch of nefarious friends, and they do leave it laying around. And the next thing you know, you come home and your house has been cleaned out. Not even by your friend, but by your friend's criminal cohorts. So soul ties kind of work like that. That you might be the victim of some kind of curse. You could be a victim of some kind of bad luck or misfortune. You know, we don't believe in that. We believe in blessings and curses. So you might be missing out on your blessings in life and having to, endure curses because someone that you are connected with has open doors. So the only way to fix that is to sever the soul tie between you and that person, or endure their demons with them and pray them into the kingdom and hope that they get deliverance, right? Or take a proactive stance and cast the devil out of this person, right? And just really take dominion over them. And you're only able to do that if you have some kind of natural authority over them, like a parent over a child, or a husband over a wife, or something to that nature. A parent, like I said, a parent over a child. So these connections create doorways, connections. I don't know. I kind of see it like you remember those hamster towns. They were just tubes, clear plastic tubes that connect little play areas to other play areas. And some people had these hamster tubes running all through their house, all around everywhere. And it was just like a hamster kingdom of interconnecting tubes and doorways and passages that the hamsters would play in. And that is very much like what your life can be like if you have a lot of associations with people. This is one of the reasons why super hyper spiritual people who are on some kind of spirit quest or vision, they tend to isolate themselves. It's one of the many reasons that we tend to isolate ourselves, because we're eliminating possible incursions by the demonic through the people around us. In other words, your problems become my problems when we're connected through any kind of bond with each other. That's just human nature and normal. But there's also a supernatural, spiritual, excuse me, I'm having some allergy issues. I live on a dirt road, so sometimes it's just dust. But yeah, it's a supernatural, spiritual connection to these people that can open you up for blessings or curses. Like by hanging around people who are blessed by God, sometimes those blessings, through the same sort of soul connection, same sort of soul tie, can bleed over into you. The Bible teaches us that if you're married to someone, for instance, who is not a believer, that a wife who is a believer can bring sanctification to the husband through the marriage bond, through a supernatural soul tie. The Bible tells us that the spouse can actually bring righteousness and holiness to the spouse that doesn't believe. And I could read that to you, but it's kind of interesting to see that Paul encourages us to stay married to people and keep the soul tie to people who are not saved, because if we keep ourselves tuned in, we can affect them through the very same soul ties. But you have to be careful, because if they are wide open, or if they're dabbling in the occult, or they come from a history or a family history of the occult, if you are in a relationship with that person and you open up those passageways, that connection to them, then you could be opening doorways. It's kind of like connecting your house to their house. Now they can go through their house to get into your house through a door that you left open to this person. So I believe I've made sense with this concept of soul ties. So there's definitely a way to break soul ties. What you run into is the difficulty of keeping the relationship with the person who has the open doors and windows, and enduring the curses that are going to come your way. And you don't have to be victim of these curses when they try to access you through this person. You can keep them preyed off of you, but it is a vigilance. It's about like setting up and keeping watch over the doorway that you left open to this person in your life, so that other heebie-jeebies or boogeymen that come in through other doorways in their spiritual house don't sneak into yours through the doorway that you left open. So it takes this vigilance where you have to stand guard over the connection that you have with this person who is lost, or who is cursed, or who is enduring these kind of curses. Now, ideally, you want to bring that person into the kingdom with you. You want to give them righteous sanctification through your connection with God, and you want that soul tie to work in their favor and against the enemy, instead of them working that soul tie against you, right? And so you have to keep that vigilance up on that connection, and hopefully you can pray a reversal in that by bringing the person into the kingdom, helping them recognize their soul ties and their curses and their open doorways, and get them all delivered and their doors closed. And now you can hook your two houses together and be equally yoked, right? And be partnered together in a relative safety. Now, having said that, in this modern world, all of us, myself included, all of us have a whole lot of exes. And nowadays they call it body count. It's the number of people that you have slept with. But let me tell you, if you haven't gone through the process of closing that doorway you opened, because here's the thing, sex is actually sacred. Sex is a sacrament. Sex is a supernatural act that opens up spiritual doorways. The two shall become one flesh. The Bible tells us that even if we sleep with a prostitute, that counts, just like we were married to them in the spirit realm, and the two shall become one flesh, and we become intermingled spiritually with this other person, even if it was just a sexual act and it meant nothing to us. So part of really closing up these doorways that the demonic can access you, and getting rid of bad luck, getting rid of curses, no this required, getting rid of these curses, whether they be familial curses, family curses, whether it's bad karma that you have to share in with this person, by getting either the door closed between you and ending the soul tie and boarding the door shut so the zombies can't get in from their end, and cutting that person off. Now, if that person is a part of your past, that's a simple thing. I take in my hand of the sword of the Spirit and I cut every soul tie between me and fill in the blank. If it's a sexual soul tie, you say, in my case, I'm male, so I would say, so-and-so, you are not my woman, and I am not your man. And I cut every soul tie from you. I thank God for every good thing I got from you, and I reject every bad thing that passed to me through you. And I close every door to the demonic. And so it's an act of spiritual authority that you take in a situation where you can close those spiritual loopholes that the demons use to affect you. And just because you're saved, you might think that you're immune to this stuff, but you are not immune to this stuff, right? Getting Jesus does not clear you of bad karma from your past. It doesn't clear you from soul ties. It doesn't clear you from curses in the family. It doesn't clear you from any of this sort of stuff that we're talking about. But it's the first step in changing your life, and you can clear the bad karma. You can stop the curses. You can stop the bad luck, misfortune. You can end things like being accident prone. You can end things like always getting the short end of the stick and never winning. All of this stuff that seems to have plagued you can be tied to the demonic bringing this bad luck into your life, because they want to torment you, right? You understand that they get their jollies. It's not just their job, it's their passion to ruin your life. And they can access you through these doors and windows that you leave open, through soul ties that connect you to other people. So when I get to the end of the teaching portion of this programming, I'm not programming you, okay? It's just like an old television saying. But when we get to the end of this teaching session, and I feel like those of you that have watched the series and get a grasp of the teaching, then we'll start talking about the practical application of this stuff. And in it, there will be a scripted, ceremonial, sacramental, what's the word I can never remember? It's not ceremonial, sacramental, one of those words. It'll come to me. It's a printed out prayer, right? You're going to read it or memorize it. And it's the prayer that I gave you a glimpse of, where you cut away these soul ties that connect you to these other people from your past. And then you limit the number of people that are in your life. And then you guard the doorways, the spiritual doorways of access through the soul ties to the people, to the small group of people that you actually are bonded to. And then you work to get them to banish the demonic from their life and close the windows and doors in their existence. And then you can build this greater network of people who are free, who are staying free, and who are setting other people free. And this is how you can have a harmonious family life. You can have a harmonious friend circle when you can do this, and you can make your soul ties and connections as pure as possible, one believer to another. That's the ideal. But this world is not ideal. And we have to work with people at our jobs, for instance, where we have a covenant agreement that does have, as above, so below. What you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. So you have this connection in the spirit realm with, say, a boss or a coworker that you can't help because you're bound to them in the natural realm. So what you have to do is sit vigilance over that connection. You have to guard the door, that open door between you and your coworker. And in the future, I will, in the application portion of these teachings, I'll tell you how to do that, how you can. And if I don't, then get on here and remind me later on. Make some notes and go, hey, Sage, remember you're going to tell us about how to work with a boss without having a soul tie to a boss, so that you are not affected. And I tell you, to give you an example, I know people that live like this, whose entire company was taken down by some fraudulent thing, and they didn't get caught up in it because they tended to that relationship and they kept that soul tie purified by watching the doorway to that person, if that makes sense, in the spirit realm, through prayer, through keeping your eye peeled in the spirit realm, watching for any connection beyond work that can penetrate your defenses. This is all about building strong defenses in the spirit world. Why do some people have peace and other people don't? Because they have found all of the avenues of attack that the demonic brings against them, and they, with the help of Jesus Christ and the power that He gave us, and through the prompting and guidance of the Holy Spirit, we are able to purify our space, like create that bubble that I talk about, where we can sit with God under His bubble of protection, in His ring of fire and hedge of thorns of protection, right? We can sit while battle rages on around us and just have a calm meal and share a meal together in the presence of our enemy in the middle of a pitched battle, and have this peace because we've purified our space. We kept our connections pure. And if necessary, you have to do what I do and isolate yourself to the point where you only have a few relationships to tend that doorway, that portal to. So it's a matter of always keeping your eyes peeled for the enemy, knowing that the devil's like a roaring lion, roaming to and fro, seeking whom he may devour. These defense mechanisms that I'm teaching you about are nothing different than the technology that tribesmen have been using to hold back predators and gangs of predators, packs of predators who attack their villages at night. They surround their villages in hedges of thorns to keep the animals away. If they start to penetrate that, they build a fire, a giant ring of fire around the village to keep the village safe at night. Brothers and sisters, I have to express to you the absolute, with absolute certainty. I just need you to know that this world is full of demons. They are responsible for the chaos. It is your responsibility to protect yourself. It is your responsibility as a citizen of this planet to protect our planet from these invading forces. It is your responsibility to surround your family with spiritual protection, to protect your children and your spouse. It is up to you to break soul ties with people who could bring things to your life that could cause the devil to have an open door or a foothold to get a hold of your life and get a hold of you. Many of you have wondered at my peace. I've been told since I started this channel, how is it, Sage, that you can tell us about all these dire things, all of these frightening apocalyptic views of what is to come, all of the crazy things we've been living through the last few years, and still keep your sense of humor and still feel at peace? It's because I have utilized these very important skills that have been passed to me by very capable men of God who have studied the Word and the application of the Word, not just the theory, but the application of living a Christian life. How to apply these things to your life, and you will see the difference. They have taught me and shown me, and I put this into practice in my life, as many thousands of others who are devoutly involved in spiritual warfare and understand their place in this world. We have successfully attained a level of peace that most people, Christian people especially, never find. I understand that Jesus is the answer, but He's just the beginning of this walk. Learning to operate in the power and authority that He gave you as a believer. Learning to do even greater things than He did. Learning to walk the walk of Jesus, not just talk the talk of Jesus. Not just to hear the things He said, but to also do them. Not just to wonder at His miracles, but to also recreate them in the modern time. And for this it takes a lot of faith, and it takes a clean heart, and it takes a isolation from pathways, the many pathways that this modern culture provides the devil to access you. There's 1,000,001 ways in this culture we live in that the devil can access you. And it's up to you to tend to your protection. Remember, demons are lawyers and they love loopholes. And if you leave a latch unlatched, if you leave a door open or a window down, they'll find a way in. So you have to be studious protectors of your spiritual house. And through that comes breaking unnecessary soul ties. Look at them like unnecessary appendages. Think of it as you have been tracking through the mud until you've got so much mud on your feet, stuck to your boots, that you can't walk anymore, that you just get bogged down in the mire and muck of this earth. And clearing the soul ties of your past is like getting rid of this unnecessary weight that is weighting you down and keeping you from taking your next step forward as a triumphant Christian. So in the period of time where we're in the learning phase and before we get to the practical application phase, I want y'all to spend some time in prayer and ask yourself, how many open doors do I have through these old connections that I never properly put an end to? Do I have soul ties to my exes? Do I have soul ties to past preachers that I have pledged my faith and allegiance in? Do I have soul ties to toxic people in my family? I will teach you that you can break a soul tie with a toxic member of your family without discarding the person. You know, you can be around them but not have a tie to them anymore through the proper use of ritual. That's the word I couldn't remember earlier. Ritual and sacraments, whatever you want to call it. There's power in prayer, and I believe in structured prayer to battle specific issues. So you can have a non-chaotic life. You can be free of sickness and stinking thinking and depression and the long laundry list of emotional issues that modern people endure. This spiritual method is a way of giving you peace and relief from the things that torment you. And part of your torment comes from these old connections that need to be ended. And you can end, you can forgive people from your past. You can even retain some level of relationship with them. As long as you break the soul tie and then tend to that door. Open and close it on a need-to basis. Hey, what's up, cuz? Glad to see you. Now I'm closing the door. You're not in my life. You're just there. And we're both have parallel lives, right? It's a good way to look at it. Ask yourself, do you have these unnecessary soul ties? How many people have you slept with? And do you think you should take in your hand the sword of the Spirit and break every soul tie connection with so-and-so, fill in the blank, because they're not your woman and you're not their man, or vice versa, depending on your pronoun of choice. I want to leave you with this prayer. I also want to remind you to support the channel. I always very much need financial support. I'm doing okay right now, but if I was to lose one of my major tithers at any given moment, I could be in a real tough spot. So I trust God week to week, but listen for that still small voice. If God tells you to give to our mission here, to contribute to getting this word out to people about spiritual freedom, then I want you to move towards that, move on that. And if you got anything from this, if you enjoyed this, if it was entertaining, enlightening, or especially if it was life-changing, please consider contributing to the PayPal in the description. I'd love to hear your testimony via email. I will take a moment before I close and share with you that I received some feedback from one of my sermons. Apparently one of the viewers was dealing with a really bad individual, a con man, a person who takes advantage of women and children and orphans and widows and that sort of thing. And he used a lot of real estate scams to do it. And it was kind of a love scam. He would prey upon lonely women, I understand, was part of his MO. And this guy was just a bad guy, and he had a lot of people looking for him. And one of our viewers had lost a house to him in a con job, and they had been looking for him. They'd been looking for him to, they had to like get their hands on this guy to proceed. And he was just like a ghost. They couldn't find him. And this person, this viewer of ours, wondered if they would ever get justice. And they would pray and pray imprecatory prayers. So this is feedback from my imprecatory prayer sermon from a while back. You can find that by going back through the uploads. But this imprecatory prayer sermon, in it, I talk about how that I don't believe in praying against people. I believe in praying for people. So instead of praying, God get them, God bring them to justice, may they be put in chains and dragged before the court, God you must blah 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 blah. This is imprecatory prayer. And I taught the Jesus method. And one of my viewers took it to heart and put it in practice. And here's the feedback. They'd been trying to get this scoundrel caught for forever. And God had not answered their prayers for justice. And so they did the unthinkable. They did what Old Sage Wanderer told them to do. They got their family and their kids together. They got all together and they had a big prayer meeting just to pray for this man. Just to pray that God would bless him and give him peace and happiness and goodness. And they prayed good blessings on this man. And the next day, after they followed this method, the next day, according to this viewer's letter that they wrote me, this man was found and arrested, and the process began to get this woman back, got her house back to her. And just since I made that video, not only has they got the house back, they've been there. They have full possession of the house now. It's legally theirs, and it's a sizable sum. And it's gonna, the proceeds from the sale of this property, when it's properly sold to a non-con man and they actually get their money out of it, it's gonna pay for college education for some kids apparently, or maybe private school. So nonetheless, what a victory. See, this stuff works if you work it. I'm not selling you a pig in a poke, as they say down in Texas. I'm not conning you with this stuff. I have no motivation to. This is my life's work. I have been pursuing spiritual strength and power and authority my entire life. Not trying to get a big church and be in charge of a bunch of people, but trying to get in close to God and be in charge of a bunch of angels. I've been looking for spiritual power and authority against the devil, because the devil did a work in my family. The devil ran through my family like a snow plow through a snow drift, just scattered them to the wind. And so I've been my whole life searching for a stronger response to demonic interference in my life and in the lives of my family. And I've broken family curses. I've ended these many generational family curses that have plagued my people going back to the old country. And it ended in my generation, and I'm sharing this with you. So I thought you would appreciate that. Do what Jesus did. Pray for your enemies if you want results. She got what she wanted, our viewer, by listening to what I had to say. So I thought you would enjoy that. So I'm going to leave you today with that prayer blessing that I love to spread around. May the Lord bless and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May he surround you in his ring of fire and hedge of thorns of protection. I pray that God sends mighty angels of sufficient rank, authority, and number to rout the enemy from your midst and to defend you. And may the Lord cover you in his peace that surpasses all understanding. We'll see you next time on the Sheep Pen, where no goats are allowed.